Imagine you are the CEO of a multinational organization with operations in over 100 countries. You are aware that you would face severe penalties if you fail to appoint at least 5 female department heads. Imagine that there aren't many women who are knowledgeable or experienced enough to perform the jobs you need to fill with women. Then, what will you do? Naturally, you will still need to employ women. But if you don't have a quality candidate like you usually do, you'll give the job to someone far less qualified. And that's what companies have had to do. The inexperienced women made a series of mistakes, couldn't handle the strain, and demanded higher compensation than their male colleagues. So companies were forced to select junior applicants for key jobs and then face the repercussions. As the feminist agenda has been increasingly implemented over the past 10 years, more and more businesses are now required by law to hire women. Companies were required to meet gender quotas. There were a number of female employees that had to be hired as board members or as regional or global heads of different areas, such as marketing and procurement. But there was a cost to all of that. But why do businesses first shy away from recruiting women? Both men and women are capable of tremendous accomplishments and can contribute equally to organizations. Yes, but women frequently uphold their own nature and carry it into the corporate culture. You must have heard of someone who lost their work after being wrongfully accused of misogyny or some other form of harassment and never recovered financially since no other employers would hire them. That's accurate, because they are aware that a single call from a woman to the human resources manager might potentially result in them losing their job, reputation, and source of income. Men have started to steer clear of women in the workplace. We've all seen the likes of Google, Facebook, or Meta, and Amazon, Microsoft, and Twitter lay off thousands of employees. We've seen COVID's effects on organizations as they realized they'd overhired during the pandemic. But the thing that you might not know is that most companies are on a hiring freeze when it comes to women. This might be shocking to know, and no company will tell you this, but more and more companies are avoiding hiring women to join their ranks. I'm not saying the tech companies I mentioned are doing this. No, not at all. But there are quite a lot of companies that are secretly trying to hire men instead of women. Men are afraid they're going to get fired. Another study that was conducted to evaluate the effects and consequences of the Me Too movement found that men are becoming noticeably less willing to approach their female peers in the workplace. According to the report, 20% of men avoid speaking to and interacting with female coworkers privately. A third or more of men stated they would be terrified to be alone with a woman in the study's primary research, which questioned men how they would feel if they were in the office alone with a woman. Why? Well, the main reason is that they just don't want to be in a situation where they're framed for any sort of allegations against them by the women. They don't want to lose their jobs over some women. And it's pretty easy for women to have a man fired from his job these days. It's just one email, call, or conversation away from human resources and senior management. Here's another truth. Men will always be guilty in the eyes of corporate authority. Nowadays, until you can prove your innocence, you are guilty. Men are most afraid of this. God forbid if a woman even alleges untruly that a guy harassed her at work, that man will lose his job, any chance of getting another employment in the future, along with his reputation and self-esteem. That is the enormous advantage that women have over men at work. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that 21% of men said they would be reluctant to hire a woman for a job that needs an intimate connection, like traveling for business. 19% of the males responded that they would be reluctant to hire a woman who was deemed attractive by social norms. This was the result of a survey taken of employees working in various businesses. The survey also noted that similar surveys taken in the past did not garner similar results. In the previous surveys, men were more comfortable interacting with women in office settings. Previously, 15% of men compared to 21% in the later surveys indicated they would be less likely to recruit women for positions that demand close interpersonal interactions. Just to be clear, men not saying that they are the only ones that are terrified of women here. women also seem to be hiring fewer women in general. According to the results of the preceding poll, more than 10% of men and women were projected to be less likely than before to hire attractive women. I feel this is the case because, in general, people tend to believe attractive people more than those who lack beauty. We can credit popular culture for that. The truth is that the typical attractive modern woman of today is out of reach anyway. In every movie you see, regardless of how recent or how old it is, the lead character is either the most attractive woman or the most attractive man who is incapable of wrongdoing and who works to uphold justice in society. The evil men and villains are always aged, gorgeous, scared people who look awful. It should therefore come as no surprise that neither men nor women would want to consider hiring attractive women, because if a woman made a false complaint against a man, everyone would assume that she was telling the truth. Everyone can see a guy trying to flirt with a beautiful woman. That is how it has always been. Guys find it extremely challenging to deal with the harassment issue. Some people may be accused of harassment for merely making jokes with a coworker. Even in this instance, two male coworkers could legitimately be making jokes among themselves without targeting anyone, and they could be condemned for it as harassment. Then, all of a sudden, HR is after them and interrogating them about everything. Men are wary of shaking hands with women out of concern that she could view it as harassment. Avoiding touch altogether would be easier. It makes sense that men would want to avoid being alone with women to avoid any potential problems that could endanger their careers. And because they feel left out, women have started to protest about this. They are no longer expected to work harder on projects and finish them in the wee hours of the morning at the office. Because they know their professions won't be jeopardized, people would prefer to ask men to stay and work with them late. The reality is that men would rather work more freely with other men. This only serves to demonstrate how increasingly wary males have become of women throughout time, especially in the last 10 years, and how much they would prefer to communicate and work with other guys. In cubicles, meetings, and boardrooms, they prefer to work with other males rather than women because they can share information, talk about ideas, and organize their schedules together. This is due to their fear of losing the career they have worked so hard to build over a long period of time. They may lose everything with just one unfounded accusation. In a society that primarily takes into account and believes what women say, one false charge could end up being the villain. So, don't blame men, I mean. Men can see what has happened over the years, especially with the advent of the Me Too movement. They don't want to bear responsibility for something they did not commit. They don't want to lose their jobs, status, and position in society. In reality, men just don't want gossip and overreactions from women. Women are also left out of the team's private and confidential meetings when important information is exchanged. For instance, if I had to share anything with a coworker in a cramped conference room alone, and I had to go with someone, I'd prefer to pick a man since I understand that inviting a woman into a confined space might seem odd to others. The adverse effects of Me Too are still being felt in the corporate sector, not just in America, but also in Europe, England, and other parts of the world. Men will continue to avoid working with women as long as they continue to overreact to the movement and level false charges against them that we constantly see in the media. There's no place for gossip and drama at the office, and unfortunately, that's what most women bring to it. And companies will secretly continue to avoid hiring women because they know the more women they have in the company, the more drama it will lead to, and the more its work and profits will suffer as a result. Thanks for watching Man Reacts. Show us your love and support by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. And let us know your thoughts on this in the comments. We're always up for a healthy debate and discussion.